Healing crystals, skincare routines, knitting a sweater, fitting in jeans. With Katie and Sarah, no need to worry, you're on a lady journey.
Guys, hi.
Welcome to Lady Journey.
Welcome to Lady Journey. Let me just double check that we're recording out of here. We are.
Oh, welcome to
Guys,
Lady Journey.
So many
Hi.
fake podcasts today that we've done.
We have done a lot of fake outs. We are going to be podcasting. Wouldn't it be so funny if, like, I was just obsessed with you? Like,
yeah.
in our podcast, that we're just never putting it on the air, and you're like, wow, the Patreons are all me.
Yeah, we were like,
I love you, Sarah.
this is the only time we can hang.
This is like that. Remember we did that misery video last year?
You know what I was really bummed about that video? Because I thought it was well edited. I thought your acting was really great in
Thank
it.
you.
And it was well put together and had a cohesive story. But it didn't hit on Instagram that I thought it deserved.
It was so good. I think it just fell through the cracks. It fell through the cracks.
You know what I've this is where TikTok outshines Instagram for me is I had a video on Instagram that I put up and it did okay, and then I put it on TikTok and it is at over 500,000 views.
Wow. What
As a
video was
sketch.
that?
It's the mom on a sleepover the morning
Fantastic.
after.
So good.
All the, when a mom shares too much information to children and then their children's friends.
Yes. That sketch was brilliant.
Thank
I
you.
think it's so good. I showed it to Mike. We were dying. We were
you.
just dying over it.
And I don't get proud of a lot of stuff, but that is the one sketch that I wrote and then managed to get done that I was like, I really like this.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy.
Check out Sarah's sketch, everyone. She's got a great YouTube page.
Yeah.
You have your special up there.
Yeah, go to it.
Yeah, the thing with social media, it's like sometimes I don't know. Sometimes like stuff goes viral, and I had a tweet go viral this weekend. I'm like, this is the most innocuous thing I've
excited
ever.
For you.
Thank you. Did you see what it was?
No, what is it?
It was every female lead in a sci-fi movie is like, my hair's short because it's the future. It's like, yes, that was like a good I wouldn't even call it a joke. It's like an observation.
Yeah.
But like there is no baffling. It's like still going viral. I'm like, what? Has anyone here ever seen any of my other jokes? I think I've written so much stuff that's like brilliant.
Yeah, that's like layered. You know what I mean? Where you're like
social commentary. Yeah.
Yes, but there is layer to that one because it is saying more than what you're putting.
Yes,
on the
it's
tweet.
a little bit about women. Yeah.
Yes.
So it went viral, and I just was like excited, but also why was it this? Why was it not any other thing that I think sometimes we think stuff is. I think maybe you said this in a previous episode. Sometimes you think stuff is brilliant because it took you longer to do or something. But you're like, instead you were just like,
my pussy hurts, and then people are like, this is amazing. You're a genius. And you're like, I have way better jokes written, and you're like, this is the one that hits.
This is the brilliant one.
But so be it,
So be it. Well, we've been kind of hunkered down because Omicron is going around.
It is. It's
going
here.
around again.
It's
here to stay.
And everyone's getting it, and I'm so excited.
And I feel like I have it now again. Every other hour, I'm like, my throat kind of hurts. I know we've been talking for about 5 hours, but it could only be due to one thing.
You're like, is hunger part of Omicron? You're like, yes.
I feel a slight thirst. That's part of the reason that I completely quit smoking pot was because every time I would smoke, I'd be like, I can't breathe.
I'm dying.
The symptoms are setting in.
Yeah.
And even though now, like, if I were to smoke pot, I would feel it. And then I would be like, no, I know it's just the pot. But it's like, is that really how I want to feel?
Yeah. To have to, like, address yourself.
Yeah. To be like, you're fine. It's like, this is not relaxing.
I know. I feel like if you have to do affirmations, you're not doing great. It's not. That's why when people post affirmations online, I'm like, who is this for? We've talked about it in the Facebook issue, but like,
yes,
you're like, this is for you, Summer.
Yes, I am a hero. It's like, okay.
Anyway,
so when we had the first round of COVID, COVID year 1.
Mm-hmm.
And then we came back in the summer of 2020. I got really into this book called How to Talk to Anyone, and it's 92 tips for social interaction. And I'm like re-employing some of these methods now because it's like with the Omicron, with the Delta, every time we go like back underground, like this pandemic, I've always had social anxiety. I've always, like, for a long time, I just was like a very shy person.
Yes.
And I just like settled into like, I guess I'm just like the person who stands in the corner and never talks, which is, people perceive that in different ways. Like a lot of people, I think they just perceive like a shy woman. They're like, that girl's a bitch.
They do. You get that the most of like, that's or cold or standoffish.
Yeah.
And you're like, I'm just so nervous what you guys want from me.
Yes, I'm spiraling.
I can't deliver.
Someone's like, hi, and I'm like, ah. Like I used to go to, and for the journeyers out there, by the way, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening to Lady Journey.
Wait, is this all on me?
There we go.
Fair.
Hi.
There we go.
And we will cut to, we'll do a jump cut. So like we used to always have this show that everyone would go to in the downtown New York City comedy scene. It was called Cabin.
Yes.
And it was a big hotspot. Everybody who was anybody was on the show. I never got on it, but
the show where you're like, I have made it into the New York scene and everything's going to change. And then in reality,
it was just a bar.
It was just
it was just a bar that had like
that
$2
nothing
Michelob Ultra.
But it was one of the few shows that every comic would come to and hang out and have drinks.
It was a big hang.
Yeah.
It was a big hang. So it was like, even if you weren't like on the show, in order to kind of ingratiate yourself in the scene, you would just go and you would hang.
Yeah.
And I actually lived like 2 blocks away from Cabin. But I would go and I would just have the most nightmarish time because
I hated it.
I put out a vibe of a safe space. And so I would be nervous, and then another nervous person would just lock on to me.
Their anchor.
Corner me, yeah. And they would just, and then, you know, it's that type of thing where you're in a social setting and you don't want to be the person that's not talking to anybody, so you want to keep talking. And so then it would just become this exhaustive like conversation where someone's just telling me about their surgery or something, and I'm like, I'm trapped.
I think I had a conversation with Graham K the other day where we were sharing facts about the MTA.
Yeah.
I was like, Graham,
and I heard this about them. You're like, because if the conversation ends, then I'm just cast adrift.
I know. It was where I'm like, is this where we want to be right now?
Yeah, like let's just stand in silence. And that's one thing I really admire about my boyfriend, because he's such like a stoic guy. Like he will just be like,
deal with it.
Deal with me. I've seen him leave conversations with people and put his headphones in.
That's brave.
The balls.
No, there was an interaction on the subway once. I ran into a pretty strong acquaintance, someone that we would feel comfortable being like, hey.
Yeah.
And we shared conversation. It was delightful. She was a really sweet person. And then she goes, I'm going to go read my book now. And I remember being like, not insulted, being like this. I'm astounded.
You were a hero.
I am sexually attracted to you now.
Yes.
Like, what?
You're beautiful.
How did you
How did you do it? How did you do it? Yeah. I would get in those like situations at Cabin, and then I would just be like, oh, well, I have to go. And then I would just leave after being there for like 10 minutes, and I would just go home and sit in my room.
I wish I knew this, because I would have been that person to like, because I was feeling the same thing. I'd always do I will just go to Cabin, I will walk to the end of the bar, I will touch the wall, and I will leave if nothing happens.
Yes.
And I've done that so many times in the beginning. It's so hard, because hanging out is the biggest part of business.
Yes, and it's
business,
and it's really not set up to support women in any context. Because this is a thing where I think I told you about this fantastic book that I read called Women Don't Ask, and it was all about women.
They don't.
And we do not.
No.
And it was all about like women in the corporate world, and one of the reasons that women make less money and is that they don't get ahead is that we're not socialized in a way that supports the corporate power structure, so like we're socialized to like do your work, keep your head down, always keep working. It's like, meanwhile, guys are like going out, asking for what they want, demanding that they get what they want, throwing a fit. and we're just like, isn't that wrong? Like, we're all like told that that's wrong from day one.
Yeah. Also, I think most women have had an incident that has burned them so hard.
Yeah, where
That
you like
you-
speak up and someone's like, shut the fuck up. And you're like, okay.
How dare you?
How dare you?
How dare you ask of that of yourself?
Yeah.
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 You know, and outlandish, but it is true. I booked a show, like a little mini bar show for a few years, and it was amazing to me to see how many more guys asked
Yeah.
to do it than female comics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's tricky. And that book is great, and it gives a lot of good tips for like evaluating yourself and seeing like how you can just fit into like one activity in that book that I love. It said because it's not like necessarily it doesn't translate to like every medium or every job, but it said like in any work there's like tons of unwritten rules. What are some of the unwritten rules that you have in your business? And even just going through and making a list of those, it gives you a perspective of like, oh yes, I actually first of all have the knowledge inside of me of how to maneuver in this in a way that's like authentic and not like climby and also
Because you can smell that.
oh, you can smell it a mile off. And that's one of the things in like comedy, and I'm sure in other business too, where it's like there are so many books out there like How to Win Friends and Influence People, where people are reading and it's like, hey, tell me more about you. And oh, what more about you? It's like, find out something about the person, then connect over it, and then use it. It's
Against them.
yeah, just like become friends with somebody by pretending to be interested. And it's like, that is not the type of social interaction that I'm interested in at all.
No, and then because you can feel it where you're like, wow, they really are saying my first name a lot in this conversation. Like, that is an extreme amount, Katie.
Hello, Sarah Talamash. Yeah, and then like meanwhile, then you immediately get like a favor asked from the person.
Yeah, you sense it. You get like a DM later
You get
that
a DM,
night,
or they'll like text you. They have your
Hey.
number. Hey, can I run a joke by you? Really?
Yeah. Do you remember that person? Blah blah blah. That could. Yeah.
Can I have so and so's email address? You're like, no,
No.
that's a famous person, and I don't have their email address.
And also stay away from me because now you don't know boundaries.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I like the book I read though, 92 Tips, How to Talk to Anyone in 92 Tips. This book I loved because I'm not looking for, some kind of like weird social maverick like strategy where I can like manipulate people by pretending to be their friend.
Yes.
What I'm interested in as somebody who has a social nervousness is I'm interested in going into a social setting and just applying some rules in my mind that allow me to feel more comfortable.
Yeah.
If I just follow these few little tips. So one of them, and one thing that I read, I heard this on a podcast right before I was coming back from the first wave of the pandemic when we were starting going back to the clubs, when my social anxiety was bad. One thing it said, if you have social anxiety, you should try to look at something, like just notice the details of something really closely with your eyes, because it sets off like a trap in your mind where it's like, oh, now I'm here in the outside world, or like touch something, or like just focus something outside of your own mind, because you get like you get into a scary cycle of overthinking where it's like, oh my God, I'm doing everything wrong and everybody thinks I'm like this psychotic weird person, which I already am weird to begin with. So it's like, that's not helping.
It makes people feel also uncomfortable.
It's the worst. You're like, does everyone
I'm so
hate
sorry.
me?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Over apologizing.
Yeah.
Nightmare.
Unloading, so then they have to feel emotionally responsible for your feelings.
Yes. Yeah. And that's not good either. That's a boundary. So that was one. Externalizing like a sensory perception. I love that one. And I actually sometimes I even do like a little Kegel you know?
Oh,
I'm like,
yeah.
hey, I'm
Bring
working
you
out.
in.
I'm working out.
Yeah.
But then that one I was like, that's too sexual. That's a little too much. That's actually a little too much where it's like, this isn't appropriate. I'm like having a conversation with my boss. you know?
Yeah. But isn't it funny to do a Kegel no matter what?
I just did one.
Yeah. Well, when you say it, it makes everybody do it. Like, I bet you everybody's doing one at home right now.
Guys, Kegel.
A Kegel. But it is a thing where you're like, you have no idea.
Well, it is called, you know, in yoga, it's like the root chakra.
The pelvic floor, right?
It's pulling up. It's called the root chakra for a reason because it like immediately like grounds you into reality where you're like, okay, I'm not overthinking right now.
Yeah.
So that's okay. So these are the big tips, and this whole book, it's full of tips. Some of them are good. Some of them are like a little much.
I always say take what you want and leave the rest.
Take it with a grain of salt. These are my top 4. The number one is called sticky eyes, and the woman makes it into like these fun little games. So sticky eyes is whenever you're talking with a person, you just kind of pretend that your eyes are stuck to their eyes, and you just stare into their eyes.
Katie,
yeah, I'm doing it right now, and it's like I just feel so much power because it's like I'm just looking right at you.
Yeah, there's a connection.
There's a connection. Now this one, I feel like you have to be careful with it because I kind of got really used to doing it, and then I feel like I was almost overusing it to the point where I'm just like not talking and staring into someone's eyes.
No, I feel like I can borderline on crazy eyes, like Ramona from Real Housewives of New York.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have the
so I tone them down.
Seppuku eyes. Do you know that's like a Japanese term where someone has either the top or the bottom of their eye.
Oh
showing
yeah.
the white. And it's
like
just
this.
like used to like characterize a mentally ill person. So I do get that when I'm like, hey. But yeah, so I had a moment with a comic where I was like chatting with them and then we lapsed into silence and then it was like,
hi.
Just staring and I was like, oh my God, what have I done? I had
so
to leave
sorry.
immediately. I was like,
I just Me Too'd you with my face.
Yes. But that's a really good one. And I found that like it just takes the pressure off. So that's sticky eyes. And then another one, which I love this one. I absolutely love this one. It is it's just like enjoying small talk. It's enjoying small talk and giving yourself a break. It was like have the courage to be trite.
Okay.
Instead of being like, because I see people all the time, like people love to bash small talk. Like, ugh, I just can't stand it. It's
Sometimes
like,
it's really funny. You can get in, like, it gets really small.
It can be as small as you want.
Yeah.
What's that? You know? I like to start with a what's that?
Yeah.
And I think I love small talk because I want nothing less than to be like standing and someone approach me with like a story of their childhood trauma.
And we've had 2 incidences, I think, of the same people.
Oh yes, yeah, right.
Where
By the way,
you're like, hey,
happened.
how are you? And then they unload
Bad.
really awful stuff that you're like, I'm about to go up, and now I feel really bad for your childhood right now.
Yeah. And you're like, you're trying to like be like, well, at least it's sunny out.
I know.
It's
okay.
Like, I'm all for the small talk.
Yeah.
And I think like small talk really is just a way to let somebody know like, hey, I'm just like a nice person trying to exist in the world. I don't want anything from you. I'm just a little bit friendly and I'm non-threatening.
Yeah.
You know, because I think a lot of times in business and people are trying to get something from you. And you can tell immediately. And I just want to come off as like, I'm not trying to get something from you. And if you're trying to get something from me, like I'm not interested. I can't really help you. I can't do anything.
Yeah, I have nothing.
I'm just here and I'm fine with it.
You're reminding me this weekend. I think with Graham K, because I don't know why, because it was like a first interaction after coming out of quarantine and just going back into doing stand-up again. My small talk was we had degrees of separation of Omicron. Mm-hmm. So I was like, oh, you were one of the ones in the chain of Omicron that I got. And it made me afterwards, I'm like, did I just accuse him of like giving me? I'm like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah.
I've had where you're like, why did you start off that way? But you panic.
Yeah. When there is an awkward silence, it can feel so terrifying.
Yes.
And that's the thing about like, you know, the small talk. I think when you have like this courage to be like, it's okay if I'm a little boring. It's okay if, you know,
yes.
instead of like just like squeezing out something weird, you know, like a lot of people who don't like small talk, you know, it's like, who cares? I don't care if you like it or not, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's like, I'm not gonna try to like impress you with like some kind of witty thing that I'm coming up with off the top of my head. It's like, who can even do that? It's totally an unrealistic expectation.
I know. I feel like as I've gotten older and then as a stand-up, like you always feel like maybe that you have to come off like witty and humorous. And as time has gone by, I'm just like, it's atrocious.
Yeah.
And it's so much easier just to try to be more genuine.
Yes.
And respond naturally. And actually, I think things end up being funnier that way than thinking that you should do a funny quip. Like that's Ashley.
Oh.
Sorry, Ashley. And we're back.
We can pretend that we just read an ad for the sponsorship, which we do
panties.
Not have.
What MeUndies?
This actually can just be right there because no one can see it.
Yeah, secrets.
So the other 2 tips, and I'll just run through them because I want to get to your journey. Visualization, which I love this one. I know visualization is like the trickiest thing to do, but it's actually the most helpful thing in every aspect of your life. If you're going to a party, say you're going by yourself, or like when I first started working the cellar, where, as you know,
once a week,
I am booked there semi-regularly, and I am one of the most successful. Okay, and so especially when I was first working there, going into that olive tree, you're like, oh, it's intimidating. Is Chris Rock gonna be there? Like, I was there last week when Chris Rock was there. I felt like I could not even look at him. I'm just like, I'm over here.
He thought I was like, he was like, and y'all with your like just talking about millennials, and I was like, I'm 43.
Yeah,
I'm almost as old as you.
Yeah,
so
yeah, he looks so young.
Yeah,
he looks incredibly young, but he is pretty young.
Yes.
You think because he's been famous for so long, you're like, is he like 70?
No, he's like just like maybe 7 years older than I am or something.
Oh, he's like 50. Yeah. He looks great. And he's also like very handsome, and you're like, oh my God, like he's a huge celebrity.
Yeah.
It's so insane to even be around him.
Well, especially because of the back table, there's only a few spots allotted. And then in the winter time, it gets even worse because everybody's coats.
Yeah.
It makes you resort back to like high school feelings where you literally have to pick up your plate of food and then move to another table. And then you're just like by yourself because you feel like you have the least amount of credits at that table.
Yes, and you're like trying to like join in. You're like, that's a funny one, Chris.
You're just like staring back like, oh, thank God for smartphones.
Thank God for the smartphone.
Yeah.
Thank God. But one thing that did help me was I was like, okay, I'm visualizing. I'm going in. I'm saying hi. You know, because sometimes you see somebody, and especially this is one of the dysfunctions of my social anxiety, is that like no matter how long I've been friends with somebody, or no matter what we've experienced together, if I haven't seen them in a couple months, like I think that they hate me.
Yes.
You know, so I won't even, people were like, why wouldn't you say hi? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know you. They're like, we went to Reno together. We flew together. And I'm like,
things have changed.
Yeah, do you hate me?
Well, I said hi to a person the other day that I swear to God was my friend from my sketch group. It wasn't him.
The worst.
I know. And I was like, thank God it was a white guy.
Yeah, it is unforgivable. It's absolutely unforgivable.
Well, it just has a more level of awkwardness when it's a different race. But I was like, I really thought that you were my friend, but it's been 6 months.
Right. Well, after like shutting down, and then when we first were reopening in April, I was getting people's names wrong left and right, and I just felt like such an awful person. But it was like, you know, sometimes you haven't seen somebody and then you're reaching for a name and then something comes out and you're like,
yeah, and they have a similar name as somebody else. I've called Jason Solomon Danny Solomon.
Oh, yes, I could see it.
And I think their last names are even off by like one syllable or something like that.
Yeah.
Oh, it's her. One night there was a guy I was talking to with a mask and a hat on. I thought I was talking to Mike Racine.
That's so funny. Oh, one time, this guy, he is the producer of someone's podcast. I thought that he was someone's boyfriend. and I was at someone's birthday party and I called him the wrong name the entire party, and he just responded to it, and I was like, huh. And he had like gained like a little bit of weight, or he looked different, and I was like, I was in the party like thinking something was wrong.
Yeah.
Like, something's wrong. And then I was just like, oh my God, I'm a monster.
No, sometimes I'm like, I am a menace. Somebody
I'm ruining this birthday party.
there was a comic that was mourning the loss of their friend with a bunch of other comics. It was the bouncer of Comedy Club. The one East Village that's moved to Brooklyn. What's that one? Eastville. That makes sense. And I was friends with him, and I overheard him. It was during, COVID. And he's like, I find it hard to breathe. I thought that's what he said, but I go, you're breathing just fine. Like, I was just kind of being funny. And he meant he said grieving.
Oh God.
And then I was like, Sarah, you do not have to jump into every conversation that you hear because you know them.
Yeah,
stay out, breathe.
But you know what? I wouldn't even blame you for that one. It's like you're just in there trying to be friendly. You're just in there. You're like being supportive, but you're just being supportive for the wrong thing.
Yes, it was just like, just sit down and take a breath. Like,
yeah.
Don't come in there like guns a-blazing. Yeah.
You're like, you can do it.
Yeah. What's the visualization of just like...
The visualization is you just visualize going into the social setting that you're in. So like, for example, maybe like in your case, if you're like struggling with, you always feel like you need to say something. Maybe you're visualizing like having an awkward silence, having that moment of feeling like you need to say something, and then like letting it pass through you, and then just being calm.
It's true, because those feelings don't last forever.
They don't last. It's an impulse. It's like an impulse. But I was visualizing going in, because I have a problem where it's like, because I think everyone hates me, subconsciously, or I'm afraid that people that I know that I've known for years will like be kind of like repulsed by me. Well, when I feel like people hate me, and this is what we were talking about that got cut off, one of the things in the How to Talk to Anybody 92 Tips for Social Interaction, it was saying,
92 tips?
It's 92. I know.
It's so like,
it is a ridiculous number.
God.
I made it to 29. So I actually don't know.
Getting to the nitty gritty on 92.
Mean, it's going on, and I'll be honest, like I just read it until I started to feel better. I read it and I was like, I feel like I have a handle on this. Like, you must really. I mean, I listened to a couple social anxiety podcasts, and there were some where they were like, hey, if you feel like you can't leave your house, I'm like, can't leave my house? Like,
yeah, I'm not that bad.
Well, I think sometimes, we think that we have social anxiety, but actually we're in a very socially challenging scenario.
Yes.
And I think like people who that actually have social anxiety, like these are people that are feeling too nervous and afraid of judgment to actually leave their house, and it's impacting their lives.
Yes.
But what we're experiencing, and I think what a lot of people are experiencing, are just feeling nervous when you have to go to a party alone or something,
yes.
or nervous at like a work lunch function, stuff like that. But one thing, and if you're just tuning in, if you started our podcast and then you skipped to the middle for some reason, because we had a technical difficulty and I can't really remember where we left off, but I have an issue where I think everyone hates me.
Yeah.
It could be my best friend. It could be my family. I'm like, everyone hates me, especially if I haven't seen them for like, a long time. If I haven't seen somebody since the pandemic, I forget all these like interactions that we've shared. But one of the tips that helps me is, it's called the dear old friend technique, where it's like, even somebody you just are meeting, you treat them like, oh, this is my dear old friend. And for some reason, like creating that illusion inside myself, it like makes it real for me, where it's like, oh, actually this person probably is going to act as nice to me as an old friend if that's the energy that I'm putting out and the vibe that I'm putting out.
Yes. And it helps, and it makes you invested in what they're talking about, so you can feel engaged with them.
Yeah.
It's kind of, I think, in the same realm of people have been really talking about like try to romanticize about your life, but the idea of like being like, I'm going to make this like, this is a dear old friend and really revel in what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Sometimes I do feel like you can actively choose how you will respond to something, and it fixes it.
Absolutely. And it takes you out of your mind too. And I think like that's what a lot of neurotic people just suffer with, getting trapped in like the fixative, that's not the right word, fixated thinking, you know, where I'll just be like, oh my God,
Yes.
I'm breathing weird. Now you just get caught in like a psycho spiral of like, I'm acting weird. Now I can't stop thinking. And now I'm acting even weirder. And like next thing you know, I'm like alone in the corner.
Yeah, and it gets worse.
It just gets worse. It's a vicious cycle.
But if you just are like, actively say, I like this, I'm going to like this, it does make it better.
And you can kind of check yourself out of it at any point when you're like, okay, wait, I've been being weird. I'm in my own head. I've gone to a dark place, but now I'm going to come away from the corner, and it's never too late.
Yes.
Especially in situations with comedians, like we're all awkward and everyone is awkward and weird. So, you know, you can just go into a situation being like, I was being weird in the corner and I know everyone saw it and I'm accepting it and I'm back now.
No, it's really true though, because like when you first doing stand up and you have a moment of weirdness or confrontation from an audience member, the way you handle it changes how the room feels.
Yes.
And it's the same thing. And as time goes by, you've chosen to handle it differently. And now once you're used to it, you know the right way of handling it. And I have to say the right way of handling it is, let's enjoy this road that we're going down right now.
Oh, let's enjoy this journey.
Yes.
Lady journey.
Lady journey.
Now,
it's hard.
Social anxiety is just something I feel like I'm never going to get away from. But I feel like, and it's funny too, and I was talking with another comic about this, like, comedians, we are actually like have social superpowers because we're in front of people all the time, and then off the microphone we're like just chatting with people. We're doing phone calls, and it's like somebody who works, you know, at an office job or, you know, does like a kind of more limited social interaction in their day-to-day life, like, you know, it's like they probably have like way less social skills than we do, but we still feel like highly awkward.
Yes.
Even though it's like, oh, I just talk to people all the time and that's basically my only job.
Yeah, but it's like every moment there's still like a thing that can be hard.
Yeah.
That still makes you spiral out of
Yes,
control.
yes.
You're like, wow, this person really thought outside of the box how to like
Trigger
attack me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the spiral is always waiting. I think that's the bottom line. The spiral is just around the corner.
And what we say is, you know, don't be afraid of that spiral. And once you're not afraid of that spiral, it makes it better.
Write it down.
Yes. Well, I've had this thing lately of like in comedy that it's always revered that you're supposed to have confidence. And I'm like, why? Who fucking cares about confidence? Also, when people are like, you need to get confident, I'm like, well, I'm in my 40s and I'm not. Yeah. And it's never going to change. And so now, especially when I go on stage, I'm like, you guys are going to have to deal with my lack of self-confidence. And it's fine. Who cares if I don't? Plus, a lot of people that have confidence are really stupid people.
Yes. You know what? Yes. As we have seen time and again. But I think that you're really hitting on something there because you're embracing your own authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that like with, you know, I've read tons of different books, you know, and I was saying this earlier in the podcast, like there are these books that will tell you how to like manipulate people socially in a way that's like completely inorganic. And like, yes, maybe these techniques worked in the 50s, but like just because I walk into a room and have like the most amazing posture, it's like, why don't I just like sit the way I want to sit?
Yeah.
And just be myself. And then also just be like totally radically accepting of that. Like, this is how I sit. Like, I kind of have a hump in my back and I'm not like walking like a supermodel everywhere I go and coming into a room and owning it with my smile. You know, it's like, I am a flawed person and fine.
And I've accepted how you want to respond to that.
Yeah.
So if you don't like it, that's okay. Move on.
Move the F on. And that's its own type of confidence in a way.
It is. It's weird because I'll see a comic that I'm like, they don't have confidence, but for some reason they've accepted who they are on stage, and it's weirdly turned into a thing of confidence.
Yes, totally. It's totally, because I think the other type of confidence that kind of like shoulders back, like it's like a more haughty, like a more arrogant confidence. I think like a lot of times that's actually rooted in like a deep insecurity like trying to like hit these like marks of like, I really want something. So if I do all these things, then I'll get it,
Oh yeah. Cause I feel like there's times where I've tried to go on stage to fake confidence and I notice that the crowd is not responding to it.
Yeah.
And I realized, oh, I think they can read that this is not authentic.
Yeah. And how about when you like try to go into like a social setting with fake confidence? People are like, what? You're like, I'm sorry.
You all of a sudden feel like you're Mae West with the best witty things, and people are like, what are you doing?
Watch out, cowboy.
I'm being charismatic.
Yeah. Yeah, you just sound like a robot.
Yeah.
But yeah, oh God, I just had something.
Oh, it's the
my
worst.
God.
It's the worst.
Wait, what were we talking about just before this?
Accepting not having self-confidence, and then that becomes its own authentic, and then that in turns turned into confidence, and then
an arrogance.
Stupid people are confident.
Oh, I lost it.
Oh God. Well, if it comes back,
interrupt. I will.
Just blurt it out.
Well, I think maybe we should actually wrap up.
You think so?
Or should we go on to the
Let's.
Do you want to chat about
Let's wrap
Friends?
up, and then we'll go into.
Yeah, we'll wrap up. Thank you so much for watching.
This was a road. We went on a journey.
This podcast has been a journey because we had a little technical difficulties. We were been like bopping back and forth, and then we ate in the middle of this. I'm actually getting very tired.
This was like a 4-hour podcast.
Yeah. It's been a lot, but thanks for being here with us, and thanks for doing all the podcasting things, liking, subscribing, writing a review. Please help us, because we want to take Lady Journey to the next level, and you guys are a part of that.
Yeah,
and this is a cult,
and once we rise, you rise.
Yes, yes. A rising tide carries all boats.
Yes.
And you can start your own Lady Journeys, and that's where this becomes an MLM. We're going to tell you how to start a podcast about this podcast.
Yes. Lady Journey.
Lady Journey.